Other breaking news, the Supreme Court has handed down a ruling temporarily blocking a California law preventing teachers from informing parents about their students' gender expression.
Now, the state policy was intended to protect trans minors from abuse at home or rejection, but it raised questions about if parents had a right to know if their child is going through gender transition at school. California argued that students have the right to privacy about their gender expression. In an unsigned order, the court found, quote, "We conclude that the parents who seek religious exemptions are likely to succeed on the merits of their free exercise clause claim." The California order comes months after the court upheld state bans on gender identity related health care for minors.
That was a report on an injunction the Supreme Court handed down yesterday that favored parents' rights and also teachers' rights who don't want to participate in the lies. I can't imagine as a teacher you want to lie to your students or be instructed to do that. So there's lots of teachers involved in that. It's not a final decision, but it's another decision that is definitely showing us how things are changing and moving in the direction of some sanity and also to protect our children. With me to talk about it is Chloe Cole. Chloe Cole is known for speaking publicly about her experiences with gender identity and medical transition as a minor, which she went through, and she'll tell you about that, and detransition. She's testified before lawmakers, and she's been all over the media. You probably know Chloe Cole, and she's going to be at UCLA tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning. She's at an event that will be just like Charlie Kirk used to do on the campuses for Turning Point USA at the UCLA chapter of Turning Point USA, where she will be speaking openly to people who just want to ask any question in the Prove Me Wrong event. Chloe Cole, welcome back to the Pastor Scott Show.
It's good to be back.
Great to have
me.
Yeah, it's great to see you. You know what? You got to go to the State of the Union show.
I did.
Yeah, how was that? Describe that.
It was incredible to be there. So it actually wasn't my first time being there. I was there about 2 or 3 years ago.
You were there for Biden's last one, I think.
Yes, his final one, and that was an entire mess. He came like an hour late. He really started to fall off by the end of the night, and it was just insanity. But
well, that
this
one for
was,
real, we were wondering, is he going to make it?
Yeah,
right? 'Cause
I was wondering if it was going to like get canceled or something, because I don't know, nobody knew if he was going to be in there, but this one was incredible. I mean, Trump really pulled it off. He was really strategic with it, like bringing in all of these people who have fought for our country or have been harmed by Democrat policies in some way, and just really exposed these Democrats in Congress for who they really are. They refuse to stand for people, for these heroes in our country, and for people like Sage, another detransitioner who was invited as a special guest after being ripped away from her parents and then being trafficked across state lines because the authorities refused to give her back because her parents loved her the way that she was beautifully born as a young woman.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Do you know Sage? Have you met her?
I haven't personally met her. I believe I met her grandmother a few years ago at an event in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard of her story, and it's just such a harrowing story, everything that she's been through, and to see her be able to desist and make her way into adulthood without being harmed by the procedures is something that it makes me very happy. And to see the children who have been harmed by these policies and by this ideology not just triumph over it, but be recognized by our own sitting president and his administration is really a beautiful moment.
That was a really big deal. That was a big deal. You know, when we first met, it was a couple of years ago, and you were one of the first people, I think, who were really making a national impact as a detransitioner. But at the time, I mean, people were in a different place. We still have a long way to go with it. But the difference now that is on the national stage and people are realizing that in this case, you know, this isn't just a person making a decision or parents going along with it. This is parents were excluded. It was another state. It was the state forcing this transition on this young woman.
Yes, and it started in school for her.
Yeah, in the school. And that's a really big deal. So let's talk about you for a second. As much as I would like to talk about all the ins and outs of the State of the Union show, you know, maybe another time. But, you know, for you, there's a piece of that, I think, over the last couple of years and so many stories that have occurred just recently that I think you've had a lot to do with. So let's tell the audience, for people who don't really know you, what your story is and what brought you to this point today.
So I am a public speaker on various cultural issues, but my main area of focus is transgenderism, and particularly the medical aspects of it and protecting children from radical ideology and its consequences. And I wasn't always a political person for most of my life, but what really drew me into all of this was my own personal experience going through a medical gender transition while I was still a child, experiencing the psychological aspects of it, as well as being put on puberty blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, and even having a double mastectomy surgery to get rid of my breasts before I was old enough to drive a car or even have a driving permit. So I was 16 years old when I eventually came out of the transgender identity and the community, and I declared to the world, I am a young woman. I want to be able to become a mother one day, to become a wife, and I want to protect other children from going through what I did.
You know, as we talk about this on our show, we often bring up the fact that there are so many young people today who I think are going to be abandoned eventually when this ideology wanes and there's no political advantage to it, which I think is where we're headed. And that, I think, is one of the most horrific things. We need to be there for these people who are in that same situation as you were,
Right.
you know, who are going to suddenly say, you know what, I want to detransition now, or I'm not happy that I did this. And what do you experience as a detransitioner? What do you experience from people who would have been supportive of your transition initially?
Well, the very moment I detransitioned, I lost all of my support and friendships from within the transgender community, and I was either ignored at best or harassed and told that it was all my fault, even encouraged to like take my own life by the same people who once celebrated me as a young hero for going through surgery so young. And I think that it really, my own story exposed insecurities and fears that a lot of transgender people have, but it's also something being weaponized by the community, by its ideologues, and by the doctors as something that's rare. Detransitioners are often brushed off as like political detransitioners who are just like grifting or trying to make money. Um, but I mean, I not only face persecution from this community and from radical leftist ideologues, but I also am in a place right now where I have basically really no healthcare. I can't really get anything that I need in that pertains to like my hormone levels or consequences from being on these drugs. And I have no idea what the future of my health is going to look like because there's so little research on this. There's no standards of care. There's no codes for doctors to even bill for, and just no framework for the medical system to deal with people who regret this, who are detransitioning, and need help. And that's why, as you said, there's been so much progress that has happened on this issue, and it's kind of a cultural hot button right now. But we really need to hold this industry and these politicians' feet to the fire until we get to a point where the children who have been harmed can get legal recourse and they can also be taken care of by the same medical system that hurt them in the first place.
You know, all of the arguments, you know, in favor of this, in favor of, I don't even want to call it medicine, right? It's all experimental and it's ideologically driven. It's all about, hey, people should be able to make their own choice and we need to believe the children and all of this, right? And pushing them into, which is crazy. You know, because my son just got his driver's license. He's got his license, and he's still not allowed to drive friends in the car. He's not allowed to drive after 11. That's a new rule, you know, that I didn't even know was a rule.
Wow.
You
When
know,
was that put in place?
I don't know. I never heard of it. I can tell you I'm happy about it. As a dad, you know, I was very happy the first time he went out. Like, oh, you have to be back by 11. How about that? We understand that children are not in the situation where they can actually give consent or make wise choices. We do that with everything else. But with this, we're pushing people to make lifelong decisions, and then we don't help them when they want to undo it.
Right.
I think that's the first time I've heard that you can't get as a detransitioner. My guest is Chloe Cole. She is a world famous detransitioner here. And I'll just universally famous. You might as well, right? We don't know who's living on other planets right now. On tomorrow, March 4th at 11 o'clock, she will be on the campus of UCLA at the Prove Me Wrong event hosted by Turning Point USA, right there in Bruin Plaza, taking questions just like Charlie Kirk used to be about all kinds of things. We'll get to that. But of course, some of them are going to be about this. The fact that there's not medical care for you. So what do? For a detransitioner, you still have to deal with the effects of the
I do.
surgery, of the hormones that you took, all of this, none of which they mentioned, I suppose, at first.
None of the substantial complications were ever mentioned or warned about.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I'm experiencing, which I have complications from all three of the main treatments: the puberty suppressing drugs, the testosterone injections, and the surgery to this day. And there's so many unknowns with it. And I've tried to go back to the doctors that have done this to me. I've tried to see new doctors, and a lot of them just don't really have answers for me.
Mm. There's nothing, which is crazy because anything else that people go through, there's follow up. There's what if this happens? There's what if this happens? Okay, here's the procedure for these complications. But there's nothing for this?
It
Very
seems to be
little.
the case, yeah. There's like really no institutional backing for detransitioners, so a lot of us will have to go through like very loose like medical networks of people who are of independent doctors who are trying to figure this out. But of course, like it can be kind of shady. You never know who you're going through, and a lot of people don't really have access to that kind of thing. Or they
Yeah.
can't afford that. They
Right.
need to go through insured medical healthcare companies,
Yeah.
and it would make it so much easier if we finally got the recognition that we need for our issues, for the problems that we have as a result of this, that are not our fault, that have been pushed onto us by this massive system.
That's right. And the only reason is political. It's not medical. It's a political reason. Because
Right.
you'd have to, and we'll talk about the accountability because I think that's beginning right now. To deal with this medically, and I think it's also the same personally for parents or for teachers maybe who have pushed people into making these choices. At some point, you're going to have to admit that I did a horrible thing, right? That this isn't maybe you should have a back surgery, maybe not. There's risks, and we're going to weigh those risks, and we're going to hear about all of it in advance and do it. This is I pushed something because of ideology, and it turned out to be horrible, and that makes me a really bad person. Right. I think that's what people would have to say. They'd have to acknowledge. Now, we're people of
I don't-
grace,
yeah.
and I want to address that too with you today because there's a lot of people out there who I think need to have the freedom to say this was a mistake.
Absolutely. But I think that not a lot of people will have the bravery to do so. I think it's going to be similar to, say, what happened with lobotomies, or like even the Nuremberg trials, where people will just be like, "Oh, well, this is the best science at the time. This is what I was instructed to do, so I did it, and it's not on my hands." But I just can't imagine being a doctor and looking at the little 12-year-old girl that I was and thinking, "Yeah, we need to send her to surgery. We need to poison her perfectly healthy body so that we can affirm this idea that is so wrong on its face, because no
Yes.
child is transgender, no child is born in the wrong body, nobody is. There's nothing scientific about this, but they're just going by their training."
That's right. And that is something that is these days, the fact that training exists, the fact that training is accepted by doctors who are supposed to do no harm.
Right. And
Right.
a lot of doctors, they're in this sort of ideological bubble that a lot of them don't even realize exists.
That's right.
And so they just go by the training that they're given without. And I think that to a certain point, when you're a physician or a surgeon, you kind of have to detach yourself emotionally from the patient, and you have to go by protocol, right?
Mm.
But you can't allow that to override common sense
That's right.
or critical thinking, as a lot of these doctors who are involved in this mess are.
And I think that's an extraordinary thing. Whenever you go find a doctor, you can't assume that the doctor isn't trying to kill you, right? I've had doctors before where I've thought you're a lousy doctor, like you aren't. You're going with whatever the science is or whatever the bubble says, and people don't realize that these organizations, American Medical Association and other ones, are left-wing ideological organizations with a lot of these issues, and not scientific. It's political.
Right. And that's a pattern that I've noticed with all kinds of institutions over the years. My recognition of that obviously started with the medical system, but as I've gone to so many universities over the years, and I've spoken at probably maybe like 20 or 30 or so since 2023, they've gone from respected institutions that once upheld free speech and new ideas
Hmm.
and research. They now punish all of those things, and they're indoctrination camps for my generation.
That's
And I
right.
hate to see what is happening right now. And I hate like always hearing people say, "Oh, well, college is such a scam. It's not worth going." And I mean, for me, I've chosen not to go to college. I find that my career has been personally a lot more educational than being in a four-walled classroom and being able to experience the world hands-on and make connections. But not everybody is destined to live that kind of life, and their best bet is going to college. And there's so many people that are going to be left in the dust if we continue to let our institutions crumble.
That's
So
right.
now, while we have the opportunity, while the iron is hot, we need to strike.
And we need to do something about it, right? Instead of just let it collapse in the
Yes.
sense of, we need educated people, like not graduated people. We need educated people who
Amen.
are educated into what's true. My guest is Chloe Cole. Chloe Cole will be speaking at Sitting Under the Tent, right? The old Charlie Kirk tent that says "Prove Me Wrong," and you'll be outside tomorrow at 11 a.m. at UCLA at Bruin Plaza. It's open to the public. Anybody can show up and watch you do that.
Anybody can, so bring some friends.
Yeah, that's going to be incredible. So I want to talk about that. I want to make this point that we talked about accountability. A detransitioner won a lawsuit.
Yes.
Maybe for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, that is the first time in American history that a detransitioner has successfully sued her doctors. This happened in New York, which is a pretty surprising state for this to happen of all
Right.
places, right? And her name was Fox Varian, and she was actually about a year older than me, and she was only 16 years old, just a year older than I was when I had surgery, and she alleged harm from the mastectomy and a lack of informed consent and even emotional manipulation from the doctors on her mother, who was told the same thing that I was, that she would die if she wasn't given early enough intervention, if she didn't have the mastectomy, if she wasn't going through the transition process, even though she was very young and far too young to be going through this. And she ended up winning $2 million, which I don't think is nearly
It's
enough
not
to
even
compensate
close to
for
enough.
the lifelong consequences of going through this when you're a child and you don't know any better, and you have to. Your development is stunted,
Mm-hmm.
and your adult body is trying to compensate for that
That's
for the
right.
rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
That being said, I mean, I think that's exactly why we need to continue praying for success in her life, in the lives of every detransitioner who has been harmed by this at a young age, and for the future of these cases that are happening. And this came at a time just before the very first court date for my own lawsuit was announced. I'm going to be taking my doctors to court in April 5th of next year. And on one hand, I'm a little nervous, but I've had a little bit of experience testifying in other cases regarding legislation on this issue. So I'm confident that I'll be able to prepare well for it. I have great attorneys. I'm very grateful to Center for American Liberty for everything that they've done for me and creating cultural movement for every detransitioner and even filing cases for others as well. And I'm super excited to finally enter the legal segment of my battle against this industry.
Yeah, I'm excited for you too. And it made changes already. This first lawsuit, the Plastic Surgeons Organization said, maybe we're not going to do this on minors anymore. And Psychological Association or Medical, one of the other big ones.
One of the biggest physician organizations
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, who 10 minutes before that lawsuit was settled were just as happy to transition minors 12, 13 years old, even younger. And now suddenly that's changed. And I think that your case is going to do super well. We're going to cheer for that.
Thank you so much.
Not just for you personally, but for what it means for all the other kids who are
course.
going through this.
Yeah, I think that Fox's case is going to create a massive precedent, not just for my own case, but for that of every other person who's going to file it. I think that there's not just going to be dozens or hundreds.
I
There
think
might
it's gonna
be
be a lot.
thousands,
Right.
thousands of kids who are filing suit.
And, they're going to have attorneys who somehow are going to have to stand in front of juries and convince juries that this is something good to do to a kid. There's no way. How do you even argue that to a jury?
I mean, we had the recent Supreme Court case where the ACLU and I think the Biden administration, or I can't remember which, but it was the Scarametti case
Yes.
where they were testing Tennessee's law to protect children from these procedures,
right.
and they had lawyers there who were defending this. We'd be surprised at how the left is not backing down on this issue, but I think that we are very clearly going to win.
It is shocking. That case, listening to that was really surprising that anybody would defend those points of view. But one of the big things that came out of that Supreme Court case was the attorney for the left had to admit that actually there's not big suicides going on. That the lie that you were told, for example, and all these kids are told that your kid's going to commit suicide if you don't do these procedures is not true.
And that was the entire basis for these treatments. And we're watching in real time as this ideology and its stronghold on our culture, on our institutions, is just crumbling down. And I think that although we have a lot more progress to go, as long as we keep working hard, we are going to destroy this industry for good and restore the rights of children and parents and their safety.
And we want to defend those kids. I got to take a break, so we'll come back in just a second. We want to talk about your event at UCLA tomorrow, as you will be under the Prove Me Wrong tent at Bruin Plaza, 11 o'clock, March 4th at UCLA. Everybody's welcome to go. My guest is Chloe Cole. You can follow Chloe Cole at chloecoleofficial.com, and all of her social media, all of that is on there. We'll be back as the Pastor Scott Show continues. Stay tuned.
Scott.
Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online, pastorscottshow.com. You can find our social media podcast and our live stream. All of that's at pastorscottshow.com. Go to clip number 2.
A lot of people in my generation fall into the trap of losing sight of what it is that makes America great. The opportunities that we now have because of the choices of our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors who came here to build a future for us.
Right.
They don't know how good we have it here. They often fall into these anti-American ideals like socialism, communism, mainstream postmodern ideologies like transgender ideology. And I think it's something really pervasive that I'm seeing amongst other Filipinos, other Asians my age, where they've lost their sense of meaning. They've lost their culture. They've lost their sense of purpose that our parents and our grandparents had. And they're looking for something to believe in, to fight in, but because they don't think they have anything to really live for, they find it in these extreme ideologies.
That is our guest, Chloe Cole. She is going to be at UCLA tomorrow for the Prove Me Wrong event from Turning Point USA, where she'll be sitting under the tent asking or answering questions from students and faculty and anybody who's got a question. And a lot of those things are going to be ideological, I guess. Chloe is a detransitioner and is a major voice in speaking publicly about her experiences with gender ideology and all of that. That's tomorrow, March 4th at 11 a.m. She'll be at UCLA. Everybody's welcome to go. Chloe, you get to sit under that tent, which is, you've done these kind of events before, but this is a big one.
Yes, this might be my biggest Prove Me Wrong style event that I've ever done. I've done a few smaller ones at smaller campuses, but this is, I can't even imagine what it's going to look like tomorrow, but I'm super excited.
So the Prove Me Wrong, describe what that's like. You know, you describe the environment for people maybe who just don't realize what that's about. What is it?
So really, it's about having open dialogue from people, regardless of where they stand on different issues. And it's, as the title says, it's meant to try and get people to try and prove me wrong on these, or prove the speaker wrong on these issues that they're speaking about. And my main issue of focus, of course, is going to be transgenderism, as somebody who has gone through it and has focused on this issue for a few years now. But I'm sure that people are going to extend to other topics as well, as such as the Israel issue, the issue of what's going on in Iran right now, different policies, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be super fun, and I look forward to checking in on that to see how that goes. Are you nervous? I mean, Charlie Kirk, of course, was sitting under that tent when he was assassinated. I mean, I don't want to bring that up, but obviously it's got to be on your mind a little bit.
Yes, I mean, since Charlie's passing, I had about a week or two of reflection on, this is something that I could get seriously hurt or even die for. And is this something that is worth it for me? And I decided the answer was yes. Because what I've been speaking for from the very beginning is the safety of children, the sanctity of families, and restoring and upholding these parts of American life that I feel like we've lost. And I think that there are few causes more important than that, especially when it comes to our kids, especially when it comes to ensuring that the future generations of America grow up in a better culture than I did.
Well, you were one of the bravest people that I've ever met, and to do that, and the fact that you're looking forward to it is fun. It should be fun, right? And it
And I
should.
think it will be.
And I think it's going to be super fun. And you know what? The students have fun. Even people come out and disagree with you. These are fun events.
Right. And I mean, that's exactly what I want. I don't want to be surrounded just by people who agree with me. I want to have open dialogue with people from all kinds of walks of life and to meet common ground with them and to exchange new ideas and learn from them.
Yeah. You're going to be at UCLA, and I went over there yesterday because just down the street from UCLA, just a couple blocks away, is Persian Square. It's where all of the Iranian people were celebrating the death of Khamenei, and all of those people, thousands and thousands of people, who were waving American flags, Israeli flags, and the actual Iranian flag, which you can see from the displayed from many of the shops down there. This large population of Iranians here in Los Angeles. And I thought, just up the street a couple of years ago, you've got people who are creating Jewish checkpoints for students and not allowing them to walk down certain pathways. And
I've seen this before.
right, and not allowing them to go to classrooms, and people chanting all kinds of slogans that actually mean death to the Jews, and maybe they know it or they don't. This indoctrination, there must be students confused at why the Iranians are not blaming, Zionism or blaming Western culture for their suffering. And why are they celebrating this act of war that's going on? You're going to run into that ideological tension.
Right. There's going to be a lot of that, but these are people who know what it's like to truly live under oppression, and they are sick of it. They want their rights back. They want to be able to have a free country back, and I mean they deserve to have that. And I think that when we see injustices like that happening, we have a responsibility to step in, because America is not great on its own. We do not live within a vacuum.
That's right. And we have something to offer the world as freedom.
Yes.
There's a lot of controversy legitimately about whether we go to war, how do we persuade other cultures to have the freedom that human beings should have everywhere.
Yes.
And obviously we understand that, but we want to preserve that because we are losing that. That's part of, I think,
Right.
why you want to be in this fight
Yes.
for these ideological reasons.
Absolutely. And a lot of that is happening internally within our country. We've had these anti-American ideologies really infest our culture, and so many people are trying to destroy our country from within. But there's also these outside forces, such as these countries like Iran, where their leadership they're run by extreme Islamists who hate everything that America stands for. They hate everything about the West. They hate everything that makes us great, and they seek to destroy that.
Yeah. Chloe Cole is my guest. She'll be at UCLA under the Prove Me Wrong tent for Turning Point USA tomorrow, March 4th at 11 o'clock in Bruin Plaza. It's open to the public if you want to come check it out. I was watching the protest, the anti-U.S. protest in New York, and they're carrying pictures of the Ayatollah who was just killed. Like Americans doing this in New York. And then I went to some of the social media, and the people are trying to say to them, they like to chant death to America, death to America. And they're going, well, not death to me. I'm on your side. It's like, no, they're not on your side, though. They're going to kill you even if you carry their banner.
Right.
Like, why do you not know that?
That's why I've never understood the whole Queers for Palestine movement, because if you, as a gay or a transgender person, went over to one of those countries, they would literally throw you off a building just for identifying the way that you do.
Ahmadinejad, who used to be the president of Iran, who I think also assumed room temperature in this attack over the weekend, he went to Columbia University and was asked about gay people, and he said, we have no gays in Iran.
And you know why?
Because they kill them, or they have to hide, but they will murder you, and this is the same university that wants to support that regime. I don't get it.
It's incredibly backwards.
Yeah, but that's why you get to do this, and you get to, with Turning Point USA and these events, Prove Me Wrong, which are lots of different people, you get to be one of these people to bring a refreshing voice to a campus that used to be allowed in the classroom. When I went to college, we would have these events all the time, but we'd do them jointly with different groups who may disagree with us, right? We could have this in public. It would happen all the time. It would happen in the classroom. All of my professors were liberal, but they weren't shutting down opinion like you would see today.
It's it's kind of confusing to see how we've gotten to the point that we have where we not just have differing opinions, which is a great thing, right?
Hmm.
It's good to have diversity of thought. But now that diversity is so much bigger. There's people who actively want to destroy our country, and they actively want to destroy any open discussion in order to further those ideals and that destruction.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that hopefully you can do is a lot of the people don't realize that's what they're behind. You know, when you're chanting these slogans, you've heard it from a professor, it's ideological. It's taught since you were a little kid. Even
Right.
the transgender stuff, you don't realize you're destroying young people's lives.
Yes, so many, and the radical left has really succeeded at this, using these different ideologies, such as these environmentalist ideologies, like making people like paranoid about doing literally anything, otherwise they'll like leave behind a carbon footprint, right? Or in the case of queer ideology or transgenderism especially, they're telling people that children's lives are contingent on being castrated and being patients for life. Otherwise, they are going to end their own lives. And nobody wants children to die, right?
Right.
But they've shoved this down the throats of college students, of women, of mothers, of families. And they've weaponized our concern for the world and for the people around us in order to make people into sheep.
That's right. And that's what ideology is. I think that's what people need to understand. It's when it's ideology, you're shaping people's minds and you are not allowing them to think, you know, for themselves. Ultimately, you're creating this. And that's why it has to start as a kid. That's why the gender stuff is about my baby was born this way, or we need to teach this in kindergarten, because you have
Right.
to start young in order to capture people's brains that way. That's how we're made,
Yes.
unfortunately.
But this also is why I'm using my voice as a young person, because I know that's going to be the most effective to help these young indoctrinated people back out of it.
That's right.
And hopefully to encourage more young people to speak out as well.
And I think people are listening now, maybe more than they were a couple of years ago. So you're going to have a big impact tomorrow. Tomorrow, Chloe Cole will be at UCLA for Turning Point USA's Prove Me Wrong event. It'll be outside at Bruin Plaza. It's open to the public March 4th at 11 a.m. at UCLA, right there on the campus. Can you come back for a minute? I want to ask you about your faith and a couple other things we'll have fun with, and then we'll be done.
Sure, no problem.
All right, Chloe Cole is my guest. What's the best way for people to reach you online?
All of my socials are on choocole.com, CHOOO, 3 O's, COLE.com.
CHOOO Cole is your social media handle on all of them.
Most of them, yes. I'm also Chloe Cole on X.
Okay, all right, Chloe Cole on X. All right, or you can also find it all at ChloeColeOfficial.com. This is the Pastor Scott Show. We'll be back with Chloe Cole as the Pastor Scott Show continues in a moment. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online. You can follow us at Pastor Scott Show on all the socials, at Pastor Scott Show, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Pastor Scott Show. Go to clip number 3.
I can do it.
Do it,
So
ready?
you sing it like Nansingonya Magiti Baba.
You were way off.
Ingonya ma.
All right. What does it mean?
It means, look, there's a lion. Oh my God.
You're joking. That is not what that means. That is not what that means.
That's exactly what it means.
That's what it means. Look, there's a lion.
Oh
Oh my God.
It's a
Look,
lion.
there's a lion. Oh my God.
It's a lion.
This whole time, I thought it was like this beautiful, majestic. Look here, like, there's a bull.
That,
Lion.
It's a lion.
that is a viral clip, Chloe. I wanted to play that for you because I laughed my head off at that song.
That can't be what it actually means. It can't be.
That can't be, but you know what? I think it can. They're probably like, who's going to look that up? You know, how many people can sing whatever language that is?
Now I wanna like know the thought process behind this. Was this like an original thing that the Disney executive made?
Right. And is it a joke? Like the guy who wrote that, the lyric, does he know that it's silly? Right? Does he know? Or, does he actually know? I think that's a hilarious clip. That's going viral out there. And Chloe Cole is my guest. She will be a speaker and activist. She's a speaker. She is a speaker and activist. And she will be under the Prove Me Wrong tent at UCLA tomorrow, March 4th at 11 a.m. at Bruin Plaza. And it's open to the public if you want to go. Chloe, we've had a lot of conversation. And what do you do for fun? You're as a young person, you've gone through the transition, started when you were 13.
Yep.
Transition,
16.
detransition. You're now involved as an advocate for so many detransitioners and future transitioners who you want to give the truth to. And now on so many other issues that you're going to face. What do you do for fun?
So when I'm not working, I like weightlifting, rollerblading, playing video games. I'm also an illustrator, and I've been trying to get back into reading more consistently because I loved reading when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I would read and write so many different stories, and I'm just trying to tap back into that creative and also that learning side of myself because I feel like it's a very important part of oneself to take care of.
Yeah, it is. And I read somewhere where most people today, younger people, will never read an entire book in their life after college. Like they'll never finish a book. That maybe even reading is gone because we do it audio or we do other things. That's bad.
But honestly, like I prefer to like take in my information by reading. I don't even like watching videos, honestly, most of the
It's
time.
actually better for most people to read it.
So that makes me wonder, like, what are the cognitive consequences of that, and how do we get that back?
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal. Then you add AI into that, and now you don't have to think at all.
Or you like go to the local bookstore and it's like, oh, all of the books are erotica. This is not what I want to read. I want something that's like intellectually stimulating. What do you mean?
Oh man, that's such another subject. We're just losing our mind in our culture today. I want to ask you about your faith. When you went through the detransition process, you weren't a Christian at first, right?
I wasn't. No.
Yeah.
Even as I started speaking publicly, I wasn't Christian yet.
Yeah. So tell us about your faith and how you came to Christ and how's it going?
So I was born to a Catholic and a Protestant Christian, my mother and my father, but I wasn't really raised up in a very faith-oriented household. My mom and dad had those ideals that were influencing the way that they raised me and the morals the moral foundation they gave me, but I didn't have that spiritual backing in my life, and so I feel like that led to so much confusion in my identity and my sense of purpose. And growing up, I tried to find it through so many different ways, and I think perhaps the most destructive was through letting my identity be informed by gender ideology and calling myself a boy for about 4 or 5 years of my life. But once I came back out of it, I was confused again. I was still trying to find my purpose and my identity. Now, after losing pretty much everything that held it up, which it was basically like something held up together by glass and duct tape. So
Right.
not much at all, and it was all a complete lie. But I started to find my purpose again through my advocacy work, but I still was trying to navigate what felt like such a massive ship in a huge storm in the middle of the ocean. But what really helped me to reorient myself was the Christians around me. I was invited to speak at churches before I even had a faith. And it wasn't because I was like this perfect paragon or saint or anything. I mean, I was far from it, and I still am. I'm far from perfect. But that's exactly why I was brought on by these wonderful men and women to speak, because they saw potential in my story. They saw me being made anew by God before I even recognized that it was happening. And I mean, the Bible is full of so many stories of people going from broken to full of purpose. And obviously, it wasn't those people around me who saved me. It wasn't those people around me who sanctified me. It would be Christ, and it would be my relationship with God that did so. But they were the final bridge, the final piece of the puzzle that led to me realizing, hey, there is a God out there. None of this happened randomly or by chance or without meaning. Everything I've been through, even the bad, even the worst parts, even the most painful things that have happened to me, were all for God's purpose, and He was going to use it to make me into the woman who I am today, to utilize it to help other children, help other families, and to make the world a better place.
I think that is so, it's beautiful. I love to hear that, what the Lord's doing in your life and the purpose that you have. Do you think that a lot of children who are being pushed into this ideology, transgender ideology, or different kinds of queer ideology that's out there, is it because they're looking for purpose or because they feel empty? Like, where does that begin? Why are so many people susceptible to, now some people have things going on, right? But I think
Right.
there's a whole lot of other people that it's really a contagion, right? Or they're being pressured into this.
Right. I mean, we could go all day into the sociological and psychological aspects of it, but at the end of the day, I think what this is downstream of is a deeper crisis in meaning in our culture that Gen Z and the generations that are going to come after us are being raised up in.
Hmm.
And we're seeing that present in so many ways other than transgender ideology. We're seeing a lot of people go into the homosexual lifestyle. We're seeing a lot of people get sucked into addictions to alcohol, to drugs, to pornography, and gambling, and so many different vices, right? It's all because they're looking for something to live for, something to sustain them emotionally and spiritually. And in a culture that no longer has Christ at the forefront, it's so easy to get lost in all the noise.
Yeah, because you're going to believe in something,
Right.
right? If you're going to reject Jesus, well, you're going to believe something. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things to believe that are actually really terrible
Right.
for you out there. Well, your voice in this world, I think it's going to help a lot of kids. And what I say to, and grown-ups too, actually, in all of these ways. And what I tell our audience all the time is we as Christians need to be the same way that the Christians were who impacted your life, who understood that God loves you, that God has a plan for your life, and that we are there for people who are going to go through a crisis, and it's coming, and they're going to be abandoned like you were from all of their friends and everybody who pushed them in this direction.
Yes, and we need to ensure that they will get the protection that they need in order to prevent this, and for those who have already been hurt, that they will be able to find their way back into a normal, healthy life.
That's right. That's right. Well, Chloe Cole, can I pray for you? You have a big event tomorrow, and I want to pray for your safety and for all the words that you're going to have to say, because who knows what kind of questions people are going to ask you.
I would appreciate
tomorrow
that.
at these.
Thank you.
God, I thank you for Chloe. I thank you for her life and for all of the ways that you're using her to bless each and every one of us, and especially for kids who are struggling in all of these areas, particularly gender identity, ideology, but so many other things, as she mentions, that our kids are struggling with. I pray that you give her safety tomorrow at this event at UCLA, that you protect her and everybody in her team and all of the students who would be there. I pray that you give her wisdom in how she responds, and that you would work in the lives of the students who are there to listen, even the students who might be angry, the students who might not be on her side, that they would listen and come away understanding truth and understanding that there's a lot of things that are being taught today that are just not true, and that we should be a culture that pursues truth. And particularly for our faith, we want to make sure that we are upholding the truth. I thank you for Chloe. I pray that you continue to grow her faith and keep her healthy and strong and make her voice heard as far as it can be heard. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank
Chloe,
you so
it's
much.
always great to have you on our show and to talk about whatever. I'm looking forward to the oddball question that you get tomorrow that you're not expecting. That's what I want to know. Somebody's got some question for you, like, I don't know anything about the UFOs. I don't know.
Yes, I very rarely get questions that I get stuck on, but I mean, there's so much going on in the news cycle right now. There just might be one or a few.
There might be one. And I'm glad that people are asking. The event is at UCLA. It's called Prove Me Wrong. It's put on by Turning Point USA. And it's March 4th. That's tomorrow, Wednesday, 11 a.m. And it will be on Bruin Plaza. Everybody is welcome to go. Chloe, how do people find you online?
I'm on social media. I'm on X and Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel as well where I'm going to be releasing a lot more, both short form and long form content, such as interviews and video essays. But you can find all my socials at choocole.com. CHOOO, 3 O's, COLE.com.
CHOOOCOLE.
Yes.
All right, very good on social media. And you can always just Google Chloe Cole. You'll find her. She's all over the place.
But don't look at my Wikipedia page. Most of it's lies.
That's right. I should have checked that out. Is this true? I don't do that. And I look forward to seeing your illustrations one day and maybe a book that you write about whatever it is. And
I'm working on that as well.
all right, we'll keep having fun out there. Chloe, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so
this
much.
This is the Pastor Scott Show. You can get our podcast and our live stream and everything else is at pastorscottshow.com, pastorscottshow.com. Everybody, thank you for listening. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow live from 3 to 5. Good night.